Can you hear me?
Perfect. I can hear you.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm Norelle, lead singer of the band Famous. Xander and I both have been talking to you. We're very excited to have you as our first guest on Queer Talk with the band Famous. We can't thank you enough. And how are you doing? You said you can hear us good, so that's great.
Yeah, I'm great. I'm doing good. I'm on a rooftop in Brooklyn with one of my platonic partners. So it's been a really beautiful day.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. That's gorgeous here. We're actually doing this at our ranch, so we were really happy to just hear the quality. Cause
I can hear you a lot better now. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, so you're going to want to be by the window. Yeah, by the window, because I cut out when I stepped away a little bit. Perfect. Okay. I'll pass the phone to him in a moment, and I just want to make sure we have your consent to record this phone call and use it. We'll be doing post-production, and we're definitely a fan of your work, your acting, and everything that you do, so we're very excited. So, yeah, do you have any questions for me before I pass the phone to Xander?
I think I'm good. I didn't catch your name
Norelle.
Just now. Norelle, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Perfect. I thought I heard something else. It's wonderful to meet you.
It's nice to meet you, too. All right, I'm going to pass the phone to Xander, and when we'll get started here.
Wonderful.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. Hello?
Hello. Hi. Is this Xander?
Yes. Hey, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good. Pumped to be talking to you. I'm very excited and humbled that you made time in your schedule and everything, and we're doing this. And so just actually kind of off the questions list, I wanted to just say first off, I think it's really cool that just the whole off-grid and that stuff that you were interested in. Whatever happened with that, if you don't mind me asking? When you said
bit. Yeah, I can speak a little bit to it. It's something that I'm going to be writing about quite a lot on my Patreon.
Cool.
So it'll be more in depth there, but probably not terribly in depth, just because I want to be respectful of everybody who was involved, because I'm not actually speaking to a lot of those people anymore.
Right.
But yeah, ultimately what it boils down to is that the land belongs to somebody who has a lot of privilege, and he wasn't actually willing to engage in any real discussions during an accountability session. And during a couple accountability sessions, actually. And, it fell apart. And personally, I chalk it up to whiteness and patriarchy. And, it was really devastating, to be honest, because
I was wondering if it was more like you changed your mind, like you're like, it sounds like a bad, like, or just like what your current thoughts of it were, or just of that. Yeah, because we recently just migrated. I know we haven't gotten to the interview yet, but I figured I would just chat as a human being, and because it's been such a huge change. We lived in LA.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
I'm so sorry. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Oh, no worries. No, it's no worries. My fault. I have terrible time blindness lately. It's my ADHD, and also I'm just really struggling with understanding the concept of time lately. So it's not your fault at all. Thank you for calling back.
No worries. We're using a different app because we went from Android to iPhone, so it took a moment. And then I'm also just trying to verify that I did this correctly. I might even call you back one more time for good luck, just because Mercury retrograde.
No worries.
Right.
I completely
Let me call you. Perfect. Let me call
you
you right back, and then hopefully it sounds clearer too, because we're using a headset this time, so it should just be way better all around. So
cool. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you great.
Awesome. Good. Thank you.
Okay, let me call you right back. Of course, love. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Hey. Awesome. I think everything is up and going. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. Can you hear me?
Okay, perfect. I can hear you. So, again,
awesome.
This is Norelle with the band Famous. I'm one half of the band. You spoke with Xander briefly. We're going to, for good measure, this Mercury retrograde, we're going to do this all one more time with a headset. Everything's going to be better and better. So I just want to make sure one more time we do have your consent to record this phone call, correct?
Yep.
Excellent. And I will now pass the conversation over to Xander, co-founder and artist, body painter, and he is right here.
Amazing. Thank you.
Awesome. Hooray, we're back.
Hey, thank you so much. My apologies for the mess up. I'm just not very good at timing things these days. I don't know what's up.
No, I totally understand, and I'm actually happy that we're here and that we get another chance because we can have better audio, and then it's all working out. I like as Norel said, just better and better. Let's see.
Yay!
Yay! Yeah, and how was class? Class was good?
Class was good. I'm taking pole, and it's life-changing. I love it.
That's amazing. I can't imagine the fitness and discipline involved with that. It's just super advanced and major
it's incredible.
Props.
Thank you.
Oh,
yeah, no, it's
yes.
wonderful.
All right, so let me get started here. So I'm Xander with the band Famous, and today for Queer Talk we have a special guest, Emeline O'Hara, and I'm going to start with a question. Ready? And so how do we pronounce your name? And I want to be sure we address you correctly. Emeline or Emeline? It's a beautiful name.
Thank you. It's Emeline.
Emeline, okay. And so what's your background and where are you from?
My background is I'm from Minnesota, like very, very rural Minnesota. I grew up on a farm.
So rural farm Minnesota. And how was your experience living in Minnesota, in rural Minnesota? When you say rural, how are we talking? Are you were you on the power grid and you had like a farm or for the listener and people of the podcast?
Sorry. It was pretty, living on a farm has its own challenges. So it was pretty in the middle of nowhere. For instance, you can't rely on certain things that other people can. Like if you're living in a city, nobody's going to come and plow your snow for you. Nobody's going to I'm trying to think of another thing. We didn't have fluoride in our water because it was our own well water. Our pipes would freeze all the time, and we didn't have any
city maintenance or something.
Yeah, you don't have any of that when you're living in the middle of nowhere. And also it's away from everything. So to get anything that you need, you have to drive for a long ways.
True. That makes everything different from, I can't imagine even grocery shopping is kind of a trip. You have to be do we need gas? We could get water, we could do that, we could get feed for the animals, or that. It's kind of really planning your trips according. It's interesting because we had a music venue in LA for 3 years of the 6 years that we lived there, so that was a super crazy experience. And now we're kind of, we retired the music venue and purchased a ranch in Arizona with land, and we're kind of living off the grid. And our goal is to really just kind of be self-sustaining and, with our energy and just kind of everything that we're doing. And talking with different people is definitely something that we'd love to do because it helps us learn, it helps us grow. And I'm just so happy that you're here and that we were able to sit down and coordinate this. I was just kind of thinking to myself, feminism and all the amazing things that we have lined up for the podcast. So I'm just super excited and grateful to have you with us, Emeline O'Hara. It's crazy. We actually lived in Upper Manhattan for a year. Norel and I moved there right after our band did a show at the Gay 90s in downtown Minneapolis, which is kind of like this really loud gay queer venue.
Yeah.
And they were a lot of fun. And I did a body painting there and all kinds of fun stuff. But I remember being really proud of doing stuff there, and some people are being discouraged of me for doing stuff there, and I was like, what? Why? And just different stigmas or there's a lot of prejudice and different important issues too that I guess we're going to answer and talk about and get your perspective on. I think you've been just for the people listening, you've been really outspoken and just someone really, what do you want to call it, honest and genuine, and that's a rare thing, I think, in regards to the industry of that. So, what brought you to New York City, and do you love it?
Oh, I love New York. New York is wonderful. What brought me to New York is I'm an actor, so that's the thing that I'm really pursuing is acting and writing, and I just love New York. There's a ring to it that I don't think exists anywhere else because, every city has its own personality, and New York
Sure.
just kind of jives with mine.
Yeah, I would emphasize and just totally reiterate that New York has its own kind of magic energy, and all parts of the world do. Like, every city has its own kind of like life and personality, but New York is just, it's really kind of like a thunderclapping. Like, I always think of, like, at least from the year that Norelle and I were there, which I consider very brief, I remember people would come and visit us in the year that we were there, and they're like, oh, wow, we're here for a weekend. Oh, what should we do? And I'm just like, literally, you could spend a whole weekend in one museum. You could spend it all outside. You could go to art show. Like, it really, so I
Totally.
mean, it's such a cute, yeah, and even being there for a year, it's just like, it was never, there's just so much going on at all times, at all angles of the night, and the food, and the street, and it's such an experience. I guess maybe that was a dramatic change, from rural Minnesota to like Minneapolis, and then did you find the jump from the cities different in the culture or anything like that, or?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, there's a huge difference in culture between the Twin Cities and New York. I think one of the biggest ones that I've noticed, especially since I'm talking about from a space of somebody who is affected by misogyny, is I have noticed there's a different culture when it comes to men approaching me on the street here than in Minneapolis. Because in Minneapolis, what I've noticed is when people like catcall me or something, it's like some of them will just approach me out of nowhere and there's no warning and I don't know them. I've been followed home in Minneapolis like more times than I can count. It's a different vibe. And in New York, there's more of an approach of like, I'll like make eye contact with people on the street. I feel more comfortable doing that because they know that I'm here. And it's like, there's like, usually I can get away without even getting catcalled really in the same way. It's more just like an acknowledgement of two people sharing space on the street. And it doesn't feel as, it doesn't feel like somebody is just going to come up to me and like harm me in the same way that it did in Minneapolis, which is really interesting.
Fascinating. I think that's a huge thing about city cultures and how moving could tentatively change your environment for a job. In your case, acting, but for others it could be any kind of thing. Because I think we're both what we're talking about is not like a little trend. It's like we're talking a city trend that the mutual respect in New York City is higher because people don't know if you have a gun, a knife, if you're going to taekwondo their shit to the ground or whatever, and I think it's not only fear, but it is a mutual respect of people are there for the hustle. And I might also add that, New York is a place that getting there is considered many times a blessing. I know for Norelle and I, we were there, living there for a year, and every part of that, the struggle and the victories were all a blessing, every moment of it, because the city is just so full of life and experience, and there's new perspectives, and there's always something new going on. And I think that level of newness in a city is really hard to match. Even on an international level, people travel from like Beijing and places to come to New York. And I think that says a lot for what that city's magic does, is it draws people that can't even speak the language to come here for New York City. And that is kind of something to be said of that. How old were you when you knew you wanted to be an actress?
I don't actually remember ever not wanting to be an actress, if I'm being honest. Like, I was probably...
That's amazing.
But thank you.
So you were basically like, I can't think of any like super like famous child actors to like throw in, but I mean, you lived it. You were just like instantly like the storytelling, the drama, the stage, the lights. You were like, that's the world, you know? Was that your thought, or? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It really just like, I don't even know what it was exactly. I just kind of tumbled into it. I think my mom noticed that I was so comfortable. Not even I don't know what the word is, but like I talk to people a lot. And
it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like to be acting, you have to be comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a sense of cool. Like I'm not an actor by any means, but I always think of actors as like, you really have to like quote unquote keep your cool, because you got like camera and you got like a lion and you got all this stuff. So it's like, if you can't keep your cool and you fire off your lines too early or something silly, you ruin the shot. You ruin what it is, you know. So it's like there's a lot that's invested. If it's like a land far away and they're bringing a production team, a lot can go into a movie and into acting. Even stage acting is a big production, lights and limited showings for theater. There's only limited time showings in the day to do. So it's like there's so much. And I think knowing at such a young age, it's been your passion for as long as you can remember. Then I imagine. Then was moving to New York City to pursue your acting dreams, was that part of that, or was there other reasons for your move?
A lot of it was the acting. The majority was probably acting, but I also I was thinking about Atlanta, I was thinking about LA, and I had a friend who was moving. Emeline.
It's recording.
Hey, can you hear me?
Okay. Hey, yes, I can hear you. Sorry, we got disconnected. Well, I'm just gonna.
Amazing.
Everything recorded fine, and I'm just gonna continue with that last question.
Cool.
So did you move to New York City to pursue your acting dreams? Was that a reason, or did you have other reasons for moving there?
Yeah, it was mostly for acting. I knew I had to leave Minneapolis because there was just a lot going on. I had just left an abusive relationship, and I needed a fresh start really badly. My abusive ex was still in Minneapolis and is very embedded in the activist scene. So I was like, how do I make a new life for myself? And I was like, well, I had wanted to go to a different city to kind of like really start acting again, before I started dating him. So I was like, what do I want to do? And one of my close friends, or one of my old friends who I hadn't spoken to for a while, was moving back out to New York. And I was like, I really miss New York. And then I was like, who do I even know in any of these cities? And it just so happened that I had more people in New York than Atlanta or LA, or I was even thinking of like NOLA. But I love New York. I just think it buzzes in a certain way.
There is something magnificent and kind of like mysterious in that sense, where there's something always undiscovered in New York, and I think for that there's a thrill underlying. Do you hear any noise or feedback in the audio call?
A little bit. It's a little fuzzy. Do you hear that on mine?
I wonder if I try back. Let me try calling back. I'm sorry.
Cool. No worries.
Okay. Where's the microphone? Here. Okay.
Hello.
Hey, sorry. Oh my gosh. Can you hear me? No clicks? No
Yeah,
fuzzies?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. And recording. Awesome. I'm sorry. We're really gonna drill this question in, so now you're really gonna know.
No worries.
So did you move to New York City to pursue your acting dream, or were you moving there with other intentions, just like, a job or something?
Yeah. Well, I knew I wanted to move to New York. I made the conscious decision that it was New York that I wanted to go to. And Harlow, and sorry, I have a dog.
No, you're fine.
So I wanted to continue acting, but I also wanted to do it in New York because I realized that's where I had more loved ones. And I was leaving Minneapolis anyway because I knew I needed a fresh start because I had left my abusive ex in Minneapolis, and he was super embedded in the activist and organizing circles, and I needed something else. And I lucked out because a lot of my loved ones are here.
That's amazing that you had a way to kind of bridge that unpleasant experience into, like, I don't know, I can't say a pleasant experience because moving isn't always pleasant for me. When I think of moving, I'm like I'm stressed out. Like, you know, I mean, that's huge that you were able to overcome, an abusive situation and make it for something big, because New York is a city of dreams. You know, I think people go there as a way of like achieving something by living there. Is just, there's so much magic, and it's always going on in that city with new things and new foods and just books and people and all kinds of stuff going on at all times, all in different languages too. It's really kind of a city on its own machine or whatever. And actually, yeah, Narelle and I lived there for about a year, a little over a year actually, in Upper Manhattan, and it was an experience because people would visit us for a weekend and they would just have the time of their life and then be like, what do you want to, what do we see? I'm like, it's up to you, like you could really spend a whole weekend doing anything from food or like, a music festival you could get tickets to that's going on in like a park or something, and then go to that the whole weekend. Like, there's so many different things. But yeah, so how is that from rural Minnesota or Minneapolis? Like the experience, like changing or shifting?
Yeah, it's so different. I think one of my favorite things about the difference is not having to drive anywhere. I think it's my favorite thing, if I'm being really honest. Like, it's amazing that I can literally I can get on a train and go anywhere, and I don't have to worry. I get terrible anxiety driving, also I get to meet more people that way too, and it becomes like. And also I've been reading more than I've ever read in my life, which is really, really cool because I have several learning disabilities and I haven't been able to like read for a long time. And it's interesting because since I've left a home life that was so abusive and like bad for me, since leaving that, I've started, it's like all of a sudden my brain can do all these things that it wouldn't do before.
Wow. By leaving that environment, by leaving that toxic environment, that's crazy that it just opens up a whole new learning channel. Almost. Yeah. Like, it's just like all of a sudden your body's like, upgrade. Toxic people can really do that. I totally can. I think that's really something like for everyone, for all the listeners of the podcast, it's like people don't realize, and like sometimes that's a huge thing for us as a person to sit there and go, this person makes me physically ill. I have to leave to make new opportunities because I have anxiety from this person. And then, moving away or like separation, and that's huge. I mean, because with being an actress, you deal with people. So how did that affect, how old were you when you knew you wanted to be an actress? Was that before the trauma, or did that inspire you to act, or were you as an outlet, or?
Oh, acting, I don't think that there's anything else that I've ever wanted to do, to be honest. Because, like, people would ask me all the time, and I just kind of knew. And I think it's because my mom just knew pretty early on that I liked it so much, and she enrolled me in so many different, like, she had me act in this one play when I was probably about 6 years old. That was probably really inappropriate. It was called 6 Characters in Search of an Author. And in the play, if you know it, it's like, it's not really something that you would want your child to be involved in because it's pretty traumatizing. But like, I'm laughing, but like, it's also like super inappropriate because like my character is literally drowned in a fountain by her older sister, who I think the older sister was like raped by the stepdad. And then as she's giving that monologue or something, she ends up drowning me in a fountain. And I remember my mom like thinking that I wasn't understanding or intaking any of that. And then one time we were like driving back home one night and I asked her about it, And she was like, I did not think that you were understanding anything about what was going on in the play. But me personally, I think I already had like a pretty solid understanding of what was going on because of trauma that I had already experienced at that time that my mother wasn't really aware of or understood. So I think that for me, acting has always been a place of catharsis and also just great magic, just like so much magic for me.
That's beautiful. Has moving cities and like changing locations changed your acting for any?
I haven't gotten to act much yet here in New York, but I'm already forming ideas about what I want and like what I want to do next, and thinking about how I want to move forward in my career more. And that's been really cool because I get to focus on myself a little more. And I think for a long time, I've been giving too much of my own energy to other people and not actually seeing to my own needs and what I wanted to do next.
I think that's one of the most important things for artists, actors, and people in the industry such as yourself to understand is that one of the most critical parts of having any involvement in the industry, in your case acting, is taking time for yourself for wellness and to set yourself up in a way where when you take that next project or audition, or if you decide to start your own media or whatever, that you go in there with a level head. And it sounds like you're definitely inspiring other people to clear the fog out of their heads, with some of the things that you voiced on Twitter, on other things. One of the things that you've talked about, which I think is really admirable and courageous, is just kind of, and this goes to those that are ignorant, I guess this question is cis men. Define and explain the term for those that are ignorant and anyone who's out of touch with this lingo.
Okay, so being cisgender is when you identify with the genders that you were assigned at birth. And it's really something that is deeply tied to whiteness and colonization, and because basically cis heteropatriarchy exists because of whiteness and colonization. So because in other cultures for so long there have been more than two genders and they weren't tied to sex at all. And that we can thank Christianity and whiteness for that existing, which is pretty devastating. And
it's so dominant too. I mean, that's the thing, is like it's not like, oh yeah, that's the thing. It's like it's a very oppressive philosophy that has found its way into many parts of our living, and in some parts it's caused a lot of resistance. With some people being angry, about it. And in regards to that, I guess, how would you like men that anger you to respond? And do you want them to leave you alone? Do you want them to listen or admit they're, saying or doing something wrong?
Yeah, I want cis men to, there was an amazing tweet that I saw recently that sums this up really well, and it sounds really flippant, but I genuinely mean it. It's something to the effect of, we really just want cis men to go out into the wilderness and be humbled and come back to the village when they're ready to be in care and community and actually contribute to that. It was something to the effect of that. And
Beautiful.
I was like, yeah, actually I do want that. That sounds great. Like that's pretty much
I think the wilderness is healing, so I'm behind that one too. I really do. I think that as crazy as someone might say that is, but I think there is something to that nature gives us something that we can't get otherwise anywhere else. And so the farther we separate from it, most people get okay, but sometimes people lose their fucking minds and they just don't know how to be a decent human being. And I think, and this goes without saying that people will disagree about many different things, but I mean, having a civil disagreement is totally different than someone just saying, hey, this is my pronoun. What the hell? Just respect that, And, I mean, oftentimes people can't get a name pronunciation right, like Emeline or something, they'll be like Emeline, they'll say something different, or like they'll be like Xander or they'll be like Alexander. And it's like, oh, no, Alexander, it's like, so, I mean, people always want to add their own thing to that. And I think there is something that goes without saying, that if you have, an oppressive thought or something that's like burning in your pocket, you should be able to express it. And I guess, what is something you would highlight as a lasting message for those who identify as queer, bi, or some other orientation? For example, you're not alone, or you'll get through this, you'll find love, because I think right now, especially with COVID, people have been having a lot of separations. I myself have seen some of my friends that I never thought would break up and things like that happen. And also people that are single that I never thought would want a partner, now looking for partners. So I'm like, what? You're kidding. And they're like, yeah, I think I want a thing. So it's like, what would you say to anyone out there that's kind of like, going through something like that, like the in-between phase, like,
Yeah, I think my biggest thing in coming into my own queerness and like investigating that, and also just becoming an adult and like growing up with the parents that I had and the broken systems that we've all been navigating, I think my biggest thing is find your chosen family, because your chosen family has to be created by you, and you get to decide who claims you, and you get to decide who you claim, and then you also form identity and culture around that, and I think that's really beautiful, and I think that's actually ultimately what we're here to do, is find each other and find ways to heal with each other. And I think that's what we're here to do, to be honest.
That's very big. I was going to say that kind of answers like what is the meaning of life questions, kind of, I think for some people, at least for myself. I mean, one of the reasons is, people spend their time sometimes going, hey, my family doesn't support me for being queer, or my family doesn't support me for, because I'm pursuing acting, they think I'm vain, even though I just like the romance of the stage and William Shakespeare, and I like literature, and I like writing, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into acting. There's production, so many different things. And also just the drama of it, the storytelling is epic. Like, it changes people's lives. But I mean, having that thought that you just suddenly shared, with us, is that, wait a minute, I can choose my family? Spend time finding your chosen family. That's a game changer, I think, for someone kind of in that spiritual phase or kind of slump, because I know some people have said, Xander, I've been single for 2 years, I'm totally respectful of all my dates and this and that, but nothing ever long term. What am I doing wrong? And it's like, I can't tell you what you're doing wrong. All I can say is like what you can say, but at the same time, but that's what I mean is, whatever you're going through, your chosen family will choose you too. Will choose you back, I feel like, and they will embrace you. That's such a great thing that I think should be emphasized. If anyone, fast forward the podcast or whatever, they just hear us yakking and they want to skip. This is so important. It's just having that, not only, and being comfortable with that, because if you do have a family with abuse, or if you have something that's blocking you from building healthy relationships, understanding that, hey, you deserve you have a chosen family, and it's out there, and they will support you. On a lighter question, any favorite TV shows that are on right now, or that have aired in the past that you're watching or that you like?
I really love Fleabag. I think Fleabag is incredible. I'm obsessed with the priest speech in the second season. I think it's beautiful and just like so perfect. And there's a dialogue between the main character and her love interest in that show at the end that is very similar to an experience I had recently, and I thought it was just stunning. It was so good.
I think anything that can capture, your attention, being an actress, has to should definitely perk podcasters that are looking at a new show, because I think so many people are always like, hey, do you have a new show yet? So that's a new show. I haven't heard of that, Fleabag. I think drama and storytelling, when you can relate to it on some level, on a personal level, it can really move and touch you in a way I feel like that other methods can't. I mean, there's obviously like reading a book or this, but there is something to be said about like a screen and people portraying emotion and the delivery, and there's so much going on. It's such an art form. I think it's such an epic storytelling. I know the book and the pen is really mightier than the sword, but really a picture is worth 1,000 words. And when it moves and you have people that are just so convincing, and it's just, it can really teach you and inspire. I myself have been inspired to tinker with technology and stuff that I otherwise wouldn't from various shows, just like as a little boy, like seeing stuff and being like, I'm going to do this, and just really being inspired to go above and beyond or push through something. Are there any favorite movies that are current or from the past, aside from the TV show Fleabag? For people listening in, looking for...
Yeah, there's so many, to be honest, but one of them, I just saw this one recently, actually. Actually, I'm not going to recommend that. What I'm going to recommend is Arrival.
Arrival.
Yeah, have you heard of Arrival?
Mm-mm.
Okay, Arrival is...
down.
Yeah, it's so good. It's kind of about time, and it's kind of about the impermanence of life and loving people, and how it works, and like how long we get, how long we have people with us, and how that love can always exist in spite of what happens to that connection. And
what a beautiful
honestly,
thing.
Yeah. Isn't it gorgeous? It's so beautiful.
I was going to say, because I myself, and Narelle as well, and I can, we both have had, friends or loved ones pass away, and having a movie or like a book or a story that you can kind of show something beautiful, and I don't know, that can really help the spirit strengthen and grow, and it just really affects us in magnificent ways. I think it's one of the most brilliant things. And I guess on a heavier note, we're going to switch gears with our next question. Trauma affects us all in different ways. What is something you would tell someone who is suffering from a trauma right now, whether it's like suddenly they're handicapped or like they're, someone passes away, and they're going through a really dark, depressed time, and they're just thinking, hey, I want to end it all, or maybe they want to go on, they're just in a really bad spot.
Yeah, I would say you get to heal in whatever way you're needing, but you also be gentle with yourself, have patience with yourself, surround yourself with people who love you very much, because you can't actually heal on your own. I think it's really, really hard, because I think we have a society that's built around individualism, and ultimately that's actually so bad for you.
So when you say society, is American and everybody, or is it just like, do you think like as a global, like people just, they're all built up on their own, like this is,
No, I'm talking from very specifically like an American white society. Because
got it.
White people, I actually think that whiteness is the antithesis of community. So I think that in finding community, in building community, that is a part of, I don't think it's all of your anti-racist work, but I think it is and should be a huge part of your work as a white person, is to learn how to be in deep community and learn how to problem solve with people and learn how to do conflict resolution in healthful ways.
Totally. Yeah, I think our culture has such a different take. Even just, I have some friends that are from China, and it's just they have a whole different respect towards their elders. And we've had friends that live overseas and stuff, and it's such a different culture towards their elders. Even something
that in America, it's very kind of like, even on TV, it's like, oh yeah, mom, go fuck yourself. And TV's like, ha 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 ha. It's like, it's just kind of built in our, like, propaganda or whatever you want to call it sometimes. To just be kind of
propaganda is a good word.
To be rebellious to our parents. And it's like, sometimes you might not agree in this and that, but you should still respect your parents, you know, unless they're like highly, like, physically abusive or something and you have to like separate, you know, like, still try to respect your elders. It's always such a great thing to do. And I mean, with trauma, it does, you know, anyone going through trauma, reaching out to friends and patience, gentleness with yourself, I think those are all huge ways, and that I would certainly get back and behind you on for not so, because I think people struggle sometimes when they go through something. It's like when you get, like if you're going through fighting or something, I'm trying to think of an example, you know, and you get punched, you have pain or something that inflicts you. So if you have trauma and you have patience and kindness and you meet yourself with some of these things, you can kind of develop and grow through, whether that's anxiety, like for myself around crowds of people, and saying, hey, you know, these are everyone out here trying to do their stuff, like try to talk yourself through it to find a different way to get through that. Is, I think people are not patient with themselves either. You know, they want everything right away. We kind of live in a culture where it's like, now. You know, if I want something, I need to do something quick, and then I need results in 2 days, or it's not working. I think that's been a huge thing with my past anxieties, is, you know, allowing myself to have occasional breakdowns and being like, that was one bad day. We have a whole month or a whole week ahead of us, you know.
Yeah. No, it's a culture that is not centered around care, and I think that's really what we all need to be getting back to. One of my friends who I just have such a deep respect for, Sharanthi, is so. There was this one time I was like trying to figure out I was trying to get to New York, and I was trying to figure out my plan for everything, and I started trying to do things really, really fast, and like. She like stopped me and she was like, can you please just take a breath quick and like do this meditation? And she like sent me a meditation, and she was like, I just want you to like sit with this for a sec, and like I just want you to sit with it. Like you need to, if you don't have time, you need to make time to just like allow yourself more room to breathe and more room to like sit with it. Yeah.
That's huge. Because I mean, we look at nature. I mean, we don't get tomato plants from a seed overnight. It takes watering, care, sun, a lot of different components to get, you know, and I think I'm not simplifying nature, but I think humans are so complex with our emotions and the fact of how we express ourselves. I mean, plants certainly express themselves too, you know, don't get me wrong, but I think humans have such a complicated way of expressing themselves, because one person's struggle might be, you know, just not being able to tell their mom or their dad that they're queer, or that they're coming out, or that they're whatever it may be, you know. And so I think, and that could be a huge depressed state of mind that disables them from really living every day to their fullest. And we develop these mental barriers. So I think when you bring up things like, you know, patience, gentleness with yourself, you know, that kinds of things, you know, the care of, you know, community, and in developing that kind of culture towards yourself, that's such an important thing for growth.
Yeah, because when you're kind to yourself, you can be. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can be. No, go ahead. When you're. Oh,
I was just going to say, when you have care for yourself, you're able to have that care for others.
That's so huge. It's so huge because I think it goes, you know, with dating. You know, some people are at this sort of woke culture, and it's like, yeah, I know, I'm already on this, read The Secret and this, and they give you a list of stuff, and it's just kind of like, what the hell? You know, like, just be a decent human being and approach me with kindness, and we're good, you know. And, but I mean, yeah, there is a sense of resistance sometimes to finding or discovering something new, whether that be, you know, someone changing their pronoun. I mean, even The Matrix, you know, that came out in 1999, the Wachowski brothers became the Wachowski sisters, and that was a huge controversy in Hollywood for a hot minute. And I guess on to one of my other questions. Many men lack social and hygiene skills, but also empathy and respect towards women, trans, etc., other pronouns, and other people. Why do you think this is?
I think it's because of that lack of care. I think I think that everybody who is not a cis man has had to learn how to be caring and learn how to be in relationship with people. And I think because of patriarchy and capitalism, men are just raised to do one thing, and that's really like be a breadwinner. But now men are also like, I think I can see how they're struggling to understand, because like suddenly it's like they're having, it's odd to watch, because they're like angry that women would want to date them for money, and at the same time that's like kind of what they want. It's really weird, because like suddenly like we're living in this world where people are like, actually relationships should be caring and loving and good, and it's not about ownership anymore. And I think that must be such a strange thing to have to suddenly come to realization with. So I like understand that that's hard, and also men need to learn how to be caring toward everyone in their lives. And there's a really brilliant feminist. I read this quote recently, and I need to remember who it was. I'll look it up and send it to you. But she had this great quote that was like, men don't actually have love for anyone but men. Like in actuality, they're raised to only respect other men, even if they're not aware of it. Like, and it's not necessarily in like a way that is, I'm trying to describe it, but yeah, it's like they only idolize men. They put other men on the pedestal, and those are the only people they actually listen to.
I saw a thread that said, who's the best rapper of all time? And then they put a list of guy names, and then someone quoted that, and they were like, what the fuck? How come there's no girl, like, what? And they like quoted it, and then someone started another thread. That's kind of, I think, one of those things where it's like, how come we don't say, the top 5 male, female, and trans or whatever? Like, we need to have that, like you said, like, I think men lack that as a culture globally. Like, even if you go to another land, men have this sort of like unspoken manliness, where you can sort of convey things with hand gestures, and like, where I need to go to the bathroom or something. Like, I do feel like there is a strong sense of, pay gap and all those things. But I think the lack of empathy and respect towards women and trans, etc., that's just really something that people have to do better on for bringing awareness as a man, where sometimes people have this outlook or perspective where it's like, hey, I grew up with my mom and my sisters, and, I'm partnered with a cis female, so cis woman, and I don't have, like, we're in a great relationship, so it's like, I don't want to push anyone's beliefs, but it's like, at the same time, I have to hold other men responsible, and I can't stand up every day and say, men, you have to do better with doing this and doing this and doing this. But when we have special moments like this, like having you as a guest on our podcast, we can talk about these important issues, just like respect and things like that, of how it's kind of structurally there. I think it's interesting that you point that out, and how even in American culture specifically, just the lack of respect and care culture isn't there, and the patience and the gentleness on self-growth isn't there in American culture either, which I think are all very fascinating that you've brought those issues up, and also solutions to some of those issues, where it's like people have depression and they want better relationships or a better dating life. Well, they have to have more patience and gentleness towards themselves, because how many failed relationships? I was just talking to Narelle about that. I'm like, geez, I'm an ethical slut or whatever, but I was telling her, I was like, I had to like have bad breakups and like disappointments and stuff to get to our relationship. And imagine, like, you always think, like, when you're with someone after like said time, you think of, you could be with anyone else on the world, and of course we're poly, we date other people occasionally and things like that, but it's always about respect and transparency communication, being genuine, no matter how someone identifies with their pronouns. What do men need to know, or cis men need to know, when approaching a woman?
I think they need to know how deeply traumatized the average woman actually is from living in a patriarchal society. How deeply traumatized most anyone who isn't a cis man is from patriarchy, because we really are. I realize, like, even when I'm approached just on the street by anyone, my automatic reaction is like fear a lot of the time. And a lot of that has to do with the fact, it's because, like, I've been harmed before. Like, I've been, like, you know, molested on the street before, and I have friends who, I'm a survivor of domestic abuse. I'm a survivor of rape. I have a loved one who was literally attacked out in a park and left for dead. And she, I don't know how she goes about life with the kind of bravery that she does, but she does. And I think about how many other women and just people who are not cis men go about life every day in spite of all of that trauma. So that's,
and just kind of like,
I think
going back to, that's super heavy. I think even just kind of going back to that question, as a man, you know, for the record, you know, talking to other men that may tune in and listen later, it's just, that's one of those things where some of the men out there, I know you might not be like, hey, you might not have ill intentions when you're going up to the girl that you think is cute and you want to buy her a beer. Maybe you're trying to do something nice. Don't be offended if she's triggered by you doing that. You have to understand that there are women out there that are harassed on the street by standing on the street waiting for the bus, nothing else, and they get harassed at their workplace. And if you model or act or do anything, expect a whole different level of harassment. And so it gets really ugly. And I think men need to understand that when approaching women, because I've been, you know, in circles in different cities of people where it's just like, I mean, I'm just going to be like, you shouldn't be offended by that. You should understand that that's her fucking, you know, you're lucky she doesn't jack you in the face, you know, like, don't get into people's bubble. Don't get into people's bubble. Like, because I've seen some of my, you know, and I'll say it, they're really beautiful, you know, friends of mine, been harassed. They turn someone down. The guy doesn't stop harassing them. He gets in their face even more and like, oh, da-da-da-da, and like, what about this? And well, I could do this. And then he starts to like try to bribe her with like this. And it's just like, that's disgusting and embarrassing for all men out there. Please mop that slime off the sidewalk and let's not call him a man, you know? And I think those are things that we as a man, that I need to understand when approaching a woman, you know, even with anything out there. I think it's just, for the record, it's such a traumatizing thing for some people to deal with that. And that kind of goes on to the next question. How have you gotten through some of your most difficult days?
A lot of therapy. And communal support. Finding that chosen family has been so key toward my own healing. And I'm still trying to figure out more ways to do that. My dog has been a huge part of that. She has gotten me through a lot of really rough shit. And I mean, taking up pole is another way that I've been getting through everything. Like, that's been really great. Yeah. It's really just care. It's care.
Sorry. Like you said, I mean, I was just going to I'm just rattling with excitement, not trying to cut you off. But I think just like a few things. You saying your chosen family, I think that could be a T-shirt, you know, like chosen family is such a huge thing because it's, you know, I think in a way they kind of choose you, but also how you've dealt with some of the trauma that you've had to go through. People don't make it out of that. You know, it's sort of like it can leave vicious scars where someone's like, I'm never moving, or I'm just going to stay in my room all the time, or I'm not going to, you know, I've always wanted a dog, but, you know, forget it. Now there's no fat chance in hell I'm getting a dog. Like, you've done positive things. You've pursued acting. You know, you have Grit Like Seabiscuit. You got kind of your self philosophy. With the chosen family, and I think I can at least agree with you on the dog all the way. I can't say full because I haven't done it, but I think I would imagine that would be so like fitness and just like challenging your body in such a way. Like there's such an art to it too. It's like body sculpting and just so many beautiful things and geometry and shapes.
It's stunning.
It's really something to behold. It's like I can't even imagine being a part of it, something special. Like I'm such a creator that when I'm done doing something, I just want to go on and do something again. Like I just love the act of creating. I think that kind of does that in the physical sense of just like with the body and the rhythm and dogs are something else. I feel like dogs are on a level above humans. There's like humans and then there's like dogs, and it's like we're still trying to be as good as dogs. they're so loyal real. and they're so in tune. You know, I've injured myself on the ranch. I've like stubbed myself with I was building an organic fence with like wood and stuff, and stubbed myself with a cactus, and she heard me yelp, and I was like, oh my God, you know, my dog runs and sniffs me to make sure I'm okay, and she could, you know, they just have that sense. They're just
so
have
emotionally
such a strong
intelligent.
sense. They're so smart. Yeah, they're geniuses with their emotions, and they're just in tune. So, on kind of dating and stuff, I guess, what chemistry or spark do you like to see in a person before dating?
Honestly, I don't look for anything specific anymore. I think that's the thing that I've been learning the most about. My mentor, who I'm pagan, and my mentor is a high priestess, and she is this sounds so crazy, but she's a vessel for Aphrodite.
No, not at all.
So that's her deity that she works with the most is Aphrodite, and that's so cool. And Aphrodite's definitely been very present with me since I was introduced through my mentor, and a lot of what I've learned since leaving my abuser and since like thinking a lot about partnerships this past year, especially my Saturn return is happening right now. I'm going through it right now, and my Saturn is in the 8th house of partnerships in Aquarius. Oh wow. Yeah. So that's been the theme so far, and will continue to be a theme of my life until I'm like 30, 31, because that's when your Saturn return ends. But what I'm taking away from all of this is that it's all a loving process, and you meet people where they are, and if it's not good for you, if you're not excited about it, there's really no point in continuing it. And it doesn't matter if it's with, because I have platonic partners, and maybe I'll have a romantic partner again, or maybe I won't. But either way, what I look for in the connections that I form now are, am I excited about this person? Do they bring something that I don't already have in my life? And can we build together?
Those are beautiful things. And I think they're kind of universal, because I feel like being a poly-married man is not everyone's perspective of love and romance. But I mean, I can definitely say that I feel that what you said on, you know, dating and seeing sparks and things like that would apply to kind of anyone, just making sure that that person excites you and that you have, you know, kind of love and adoration for them, and that friendship, you know, is important too. And just, you know, not looking at them for any specific, you know, but just kind of like their greater, because I think even as humans, none of us are perfect. So sometimes we'll have our shortcomings. And if the first time someone has a shortcoming, someone's like, that's it, I'm no longer your friend. It's like, what? All because I forgot to buy this instead of that. And they're like, yep, that's it, we're not friends. I mean, sometimes you have that joke where you're like, oh, they didn't have root beer, I got Coke, and you're like, that's it, we're not friends. You know, we have that joke with each other or with our loved ones or friends, but we're just kidding. But sometimes people are like that. I feel like with relationships, and like I you know, I'll just bring up one of those things. Like there was a friend of mine, and he got caught looking at porn on his phone, or having it on his phone, and I was like, what, did she dump you? And he said, no, she didn't dump me, but she said no sex for a week. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah. He goes, what's stupid was she was gone for a month. That's why I was looking at porn. And I was like, oh, damn, did you tell her that? And he goes, she got so mad she wouldn't let me talk and took away my phone. And I just thought the whole thing kind of like escalated to a little bit more than it needed to be. And, you know, I'm not throwing any one person under the bus, but I'm just saying, like, that was something that they worked through, and they're still current. I mean, it was a small thing in the given picture of, and I mean, that's just a huge thing in dating, or at least, you know, this is my own opinion too, of course, not yours per se, but I mean, when you're dating, having a disagreement sometimes is the pushback other side of the sparks. So like you might say, hey, this person is XYZ, and, you know, I have the vibe, and then it's like you meet them, and then you see maybe they struggle with this, or then they have, like for me, for example, I have anxiety, and they're like, oh, I don't like that. That bothers me. Yeah, that's a no. You know, so I think those vulnerable sides are really, they test our friendships, and they test our relationships with our loved ones. And I just think that's really special that you see it as a chosen family, and that you've just, like you mentioned, you know, that you're pagan. I don't think there's any shame in that. I have other friends that are pagan. I have no disrespect towards any of their beliefs. I fully respect them. In fact, I was talking recently with one of my friends, and she said, I'm a witch. And I said, I'm sorry. And I didn't get her term correct, and I apologized. And that's just part of the learning process. I'm hoping that I can have a circle of friends that when I make a mistake, that they'll know that it wasn't with ill intention, and that it was in the sense of just trying to learn and grow and be a better person. And I think that journey is sometimes a terribly lonely road. Your mental perspective that you shared with us so far on your chosen family goes huge. Are there any feminist organizations you would like to share the light with?
Yeah, so I don't usually do that because I'm usually not a huge proponent of organizations. I usually just want to give to actual people, and I'm a huge believer in mutual aid, which is not the same as like charity or something like that, because it's literally like the mutual give and take that is just a natural part of caring for people. But right now I'm really excited and I would really like if people supported and gave funds to my friend Jade's Quilt Bag Pride, which is incredible. Please follow them on Instagram. It is, it's run by Jade, who is a Black queer person in Brooklyn. They're amazing. I adore them, and I'm so lucky I met them through TikTok, and they've started this, it's Pride events that are accessible. So they have gone out of their way to try and find accessible events for folks to participate in Pride. We have like a book club, and there's going to be a dry dance party, and they're securing ramps and translators, ASL translators, and it's really beautiful. And what they're doing is amazing, and they're trying to do it with their own funds, and then trying to make back that money through a GoFundMe. So please donate to that, because it's $5,000, and I feel like that's actually not a lot for what they're trying to put together.
That's definitely achievable. I feel like that's so much work too, that all they're doing. So we'll definitely be sure to include their Instagram and the GoFundMe, all run by Jade, for Pride events. I think, you know, that's something too. I want to pause and just say congrats and go you, and hooray, 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 e-hug
Thank
for
you.
just like getting involved in the queer community in New York, like having some struggles in your hometown and meeting roadblocks, not being discouraged by that, and then like transporting yourself and just kicking frickin' ass. Like, that's amazing.
Thank you.
With all due respect, kicking butt. I mean, that's so important, because you're really getting involved in the queer community over there in Brooklyn, you know, and just even by plugging them, I think that's so huge, because you never know who's listening, or it's always like, it's just such a crazy world we live in these days. It's so wild. And really, people need to come together. And I love the whole philosophy of just like you have with the chosen family. And it sounds so cool. It's such a cool organization that people should get behind. So I would definitely get behind that. And then, so on to another question. And what politics are in place surrounding women, if any, of the various cultures around the globe that concern you? And do you feel there is such a thing as global feminism? For example, some might say certain religion or religious sects are oppressing women, and yet there are women in some of those cultures who are happy to be covered up, with the exception of when they are with their partner. Another example Our friend Kat Hollis, who started the PDX Stripper Strike, which expanded nationwide activism for more equitable rights and working conditions among sex workers, specifically Black and Indigenous people of color, whereas we can't really compare a movement like this in the Middle East where stripping isn't as common. Or is there a middle ground or a universal idea of feminism? So if that does that question make sense to you to answer?
I think so.
Okay.
Personally,
awesome.
I think that I don't think that there's a global feminism. I don't think that there's a global way to attack or not attack. I don't think there's a global way to approach disparities. I don't think that there is, because hierarchies are going to operate differently depending on where you are and what communities you're in. So I think it's most important to support the people who are affected within those communities from their standpoint and what they see, and just support them in whatever ways that they're hoping to be supported in. So, for instance, like...
That is very profound.
Yeah.
No, keep going. I'm listening. Go ahead. You're speaking so elegantly. I was just kind of agreeing with you. I do that sometimes.
Thank you. I appreciate it. No worries. Okay. No worries. Yeah, I think that that's the most important thing, is to never assume, because you don't, unless you're a part of that community and unless you're the person affected, there's no way for you to assume what is harmful to somebody other than unless you've been educated by reading or listening to those people already discussing it.
Yep. I think that's such a good way of saying such an important truth, and I'll call it that, because I can't disagree. I think that's just like you said, being a part of that community and understanding the needs and just like kind of you said about intention, and like when a guy approaches you, it's like, is he going whistling at you, driving down with a window, or are you at a social setting and he's approaching you with a glass of wine and he's trying to be respectful, and he's like, I always tell men, you're allowed to flirt, but like you need to know like your Q's and I's and stuff. Like, don't approach a woman expecting something if you're not in a social setting. That could be considered disrespectful if she's traditional. What if she's Christian? I have friends that are very traditional. And so it's like that are Mormon and stuff. So it's like cultures, differ, and it's always about the intention. So is this what the person is comfortable with? Is this what they want? And that's such an important thing. With so many different identities and pronouns, how do we find and share a common ground?
Interesting question. I don't know that we need to share extreme common ground, other than I actually, this is something that I talk about a lot with somebody recently. I have a friend who is, we've been talking a lot about anti-racism, for instance, and she's another white woman like myself, and she, like the other day, said something to the effect of, why can't, I think that what we'll all do is eventually we'll all get to a point where we all believe in the same things, and we all want to be this one like universal thing, and we're all just going to get along then. And I was like, actually, that's fascism. That's not what that is. What we're trying to get to a point to is a ground where we can discuss things with each other and also integrate the fact that all of us are going to have different cultures. We're going to have different experiences. And we also need to find ways to be deeply respectful and equitable with power and redisperse all of that in a way that is no longer harming us. Does that make sense?
That so makes sense. I think it's so well said. You should be a teacher of these matters. You could teach, like, I don't know. They're so important, and I think you have such a way of pinpointing it in kind of an accurate way where someone is kind of like walking up or down a stairway with a handle, versus walking up and down the stairway without a handle. It's like, I feel so comfortable agreeing with you just because you speak it so well. And I think that is something that not everyone can do because they haven't put the thought. And I just want to bring up again that you have a Patreon, and that listeners and fans and newcomers and everybody in between can subscribe to your Patreon, which will include your link, Grit Like Seabiscuit, and that you are active with theater and drama, and just like your passion and your love is there. You've been an actress at heart from the very beginning, and it's just like I think it's all a part of expression and coming to terms, like you said, with movies, kind of teaching you stories, and it's very elegant. I think it's like a basket weave, or I don't know, like a flower arrangement or something. It's just it's very well. Like I think one of the hardest things in this world for some is to speak their mind with words that they can get behind. They feel tongue tied, and it's good that you don't have that problem. You're good at speaking.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean the common decency goes huge, because I feel like I've answered similar questions, not on record, but people just kind of fumble and they don't have a way of answering back. And I think it does, human decency, despite our differences, and just solving that. And racism and sexism and many other, prejudices still painfully exist. Do you feel we're making progress with our love over hate, or whatever you want to call that movement? Or
yeah. No, I think about it all the time. I don't have a good answer for whether or not we're making progress, because I look back and it feels like the state oppression has gotten so much worse, and especially even just within the time that I've been involved in activism, like the way that the cops are moving now. And when I look at what the cops have been doing to protesters these days, as opposed to in 2014 when Jamar Clark was murdered, which is not at all to say that it wasn't bad then. They've escalated even further now. And my hope is that it gets more people involved to counteract that. But I don't know. There's no guarantee. But I have hope. I have extreme hope for the future, and I have so much hope. I actually think hope is maybe the most radical thing that we can all have. And if we are using that hope in a way that is active, I think that's the best that we can do. That
is probably the best we can do. I think it is good, because I think sometimes people get overwhelmed. Like I got overwhelmed when we were Narelle and I were living in Los Angeles, and we had the live work space arrangement, kind of a music venue, recording studio, everything all in one. It was living the life. And then COVID hit, and it really tested a lot of stuff, because one of the festivals that we were planning, in the middle of it, we'd spent so much time, over a year of just all this stuff that you could possibly imagine goes into planning a little show or shindig. And it was all kind of canceled, but I was like, hey, you know what? At least we can adopt this dog off the street and make a difference, because that was the point of the festival, was to bring awareness of animals. And I was really stressed, because I was kind of crying a little, just like, oh my God, I wanted to help these animals with our festival, and this fucking COVID thing, shut it all down. But I felt so much better immediately. I was like, wait, I can do something. I can adopt a dog. Wait a minute. And then I was like, okay, well, and then one day this little dog comes out and rubs up against Narelle's leg by the mailbox, by the parking lot. And I'm like, no way. And I was like, okay, we'll get in. And sure enough, she was drinking her pee, and she wouldn't eat peanut butter. She was definitely a street dog. We had to get her all the stuff and do all the things. And I really like that, in talking so far, at least I've gotten that impression that you say, having that care culture there, and just having chosen family. And I think that's a really universal thing that people could get behind with.
Yeah.
And then another question here. Do you believe that sex workers should be allowed to live without a stigma?
Yeah, absolutely. When I say elders, and I'm just clarifying, because I use that word really frequently, especially with my sex worker elders, because most of my chosen family elders are ex-sex workers or current sex workers, and they are probably the people who have taught me the most about bodily autonomy and about how to care for myself in ways that are true to me. And sex workers deserve the world, in my opinion. One of my bigger hopes is that people get more involved in sex workers' rights, and especially with their local swap chapter.
That's super huge. Yeah, because I know stigma is such a huge thing. Like Narelle and I ourselves produce porn under Kama Sutra Candy. But before I go on to the next question with that, I was just going to say thank you. But we go through a lot of stigma just by having, our content out there, or being active, and it's like we are so health conscious, and we're so dedicated to our bodies and just our love. And I don't know. It's such a people. It's really kind of it's really one of the things I don't like. I wish that us, as our society would do, is just like stop throwing stigmas at people, because you're damaging them, and you're also putting up walls and fences from getting to know them or being a part of their life. And then I guess our next question is, we ourselves produce indie porn under our company, Stitcher Candy, but it is consensual between a loving queer couple. Obviously, there are pros and cons in every industry, and it is no secret that sometimes porn is done in a less than ethical manner. Do you believe there are types of erotica and porn that do not harm, but rather may help or even heal viewers overall?
Oh, absolutely. I actually think, I think porn that is made ethically can be educational, it can be cathartic, it can be so many things. It's an art form. And actually, the reason why I'm pretty vocal about sex workers' rights is because I'm an actress, and I actually don't think that acting is that much further away from porn acting, and I wish that porn actors got the same kind of cred, I guess, as screen actors, because it's
I agree.
Ultimately so similar. And they do more work, frankly. I think that porn actors do more work than me.
Yep. It's so huge to hear you say that. I think a lot of people out there will just really be cheering for you, after you say that, because I think that's huge. A lot of times anyone that's involved in that, I have a friend who's a streamer, she's a gamer, and she's friends with a lot of sex workers, and so she gets stigmatized for being a sex worker, and it's like, but she's not. She's just a streamer, and she supports sex workers, and it's like, that's a stigma, even, to be like, sex workers can't be friends with people that are not like, oh, I would be friends with you, bro, but we don't do porn. It's like, wait a minute, what? We do all kinds of stuff. We don't just do porn. We do music. We do this. So it's like people are so readily give that as an excuse to not understand or just ditch your everything entirely to even treat you like a decent human being. And, I just think that that's very traumatizing for people that are a part, like where I have my fans' disclosure to give this information out, but he sent us this long, cute email message that was like, hey, some of your content, I couldn't get an erection before, not even with medication, but your content, I got an erection. And it was actually very healing for him, even if that's like TMI healing for some of the listeners. That's very healing. And he was in a way complimenting us, because he said, I could really see, it was very cute, because he said it in his own way. It was honest. He wasn't being disrespectful. He was just kind of giving us affirmation, and he's not the only person that has said. And so I think having
you for your art.
Yeah, exactly. And so having someone out there, I think especially listeners, if they're in the Brooklyn or New York area, they're definitely going to have to check out, you and Jade and just everything that y'all are doing out there. Just not only be a part of the community, but support the community back, and just that's so huge.
Please
do. And just that you're so open and accepting, because those are huge. To me, those are bigger solutions than standing and political lines behind people. I think you need to get your hands dirty and support your friends.
Yeah.
That's how you change things. And
it is.
So what do you? It is required. I mean, to create a more harmonious balance where people accept each other, regardless of
race,
more
just world,
sexual orientation. Yeah, a more just world. It's just that's a huge part of it. So what would you say is the most frustrating part of being a woman day to day? Side curveball.
Most frustrating. Yeah. Well, the other thing about that is I don't know. The more that I separate from everything that I consume from, the more I question whether or not I am a woman. But I definitely still I still experience life as a woman, I guess, because that is how I am read either way. And I think the most frustrating part of that is how frequently that gets used against me. And even in small things, just day-to-day things. And I try not to let it bother me anymore, but the more that we're leaving quarantine and interacting with people outside in the outside world, it's just wild to see how people move around people that they think are women versus people that they read as men, because there's so many small things that are just so much more respectful of a man than of a woman in any space. That's just really odd to me, and it's been weird because I haven't had to interact with people socially until recently again. And it's been really weird to see that again and just how deep that goes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a scary thought because I don't have to deal with it, but my partner has obviously dealt with it over the years doing porn, and also just being even if you don't do porn, it doesn't matter if you're vulnerable. If someone sees that you're dressed pretty or you have a bright lipstick on or anything, that they just decide, it's just kind of a scary thought. And I think, having, a more harmonious existence, between people of everything being different is just, again, having that approach, like you said in one of the earlier questions, how men should approach women, basically with gentleness, respect, and like it's not going to be rolling down your window or like if, I've seen guys get turned down walking to a girl and it's like, that's it, you're done. Like she walked away and sat down with her friends and turned her back. You're fucked. Like you just got to deal with it.
Yeah.
And sometimes men can't handle rejection, where it's like they get rejected and so they want to try again. And then they're like, they're going to try again. And then they're going to be like,
or they rage.
Like, yeah. Yep. Or they get violent.
Because I've definitely experienced that too.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
it's a real danger.
Yeah. But I mean, you certainly have built your own philosophy to get through some of these traumas. And I mean, just like even talking with you, I'm like being able to get through trauma and just like acting in like New York and just feminism and getting involved in the queer culture in Brooklyn. So many exciting things. Grit Like Seabiscuit, your Patreon. You did talk about your friends, nonprofit and organization. We're definitely going to plug their GoFundMe and their Instagram and all the information. Is there anything else in closing that you would like to add or share?
I'm trying to think. Oh, I would like to add that I have been talking a lot about trauma. I do want to make sure that I'm clear that I'm not healed. I am not entirely healed. And I hope that is helpful for people hearing that, because I think it's important that people see it more as a process and less as a destination.
And hearing that, I feel like hopefully this podcast has brought some really important things. And I think part of the reason why I wanted to reach out and do this is I do feel that with your words, how you said, it's a process, and to be okay with that and to give yourself patience through healing, that's such a huge thing that is like a teacher guru level. So really a big congratulations to you, and your acting, I think, is really, you're refining it all the time. It's in your passion. You're outspoken. You got a super strong will if you're living day to day in New York City or anywhere in New York. I think that's a huge congratulations that you're just really out there and supportive. I think you have an excellent mindset. I would totally buy your T-shirt, Chosen Family.
Thank you.
Any of your things. I think you have a bunch of really cool writing. So I would encourage anybody listening or tuning in to check out Grit Like Seabiscuit. I will double check the link and I will include that in closing to make sure that people can support and subscribe. You have a lot of wisdom. And I think that's very humble of you that you've overcome so much, but that you still see it as a healing process. And that I think it really speaks truth to everything you said, that you're out there doing it. So I really want to say thank you so much for giving me the time. And we had some technical difficulties earlier, but I just want to say again, thanks for working with us through it. And just like answering these questions, because they were really important for us to get some third party perspective. And thank you so much. And it's Emeline O'Hara. You can always reach out to us at any time. Consider us friends of some kind, whatever.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Thank you.
We'll be in your corner cheering for you and just being inspired by all the stuff that you're doing. So you never know who's watching you. If you're in New York, someone on a random in Arizona might be like, wow, look at this person just dropping truth and all those things. I think that's just like so important, man, because fear is like, it really stops a lot of people. I have a friend that's like, I'm going to sell my house. And then they have an excuse and this. It's like, not you. You're going and you're doing things. And it's really inspiring to see you doing that. And I think other people are going to hear your perspective and hopefully be inspired by some of your thoughts and how you kind of put everything down. So I think that's very important.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor. Thank you so much for this time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. And then one more second, Narelle wants to say something too.
Yeah.
Hey, Emeline. I just wanted to say thank you so much as well for being our first and just being an awesome guest on Queer Talk with the band Famous. It was such an exciting interview, and I do agree with Sander that, people watching are going to find inspiration and just motivation to keep pushing through whatever trauma or hardship they might be facing, and just remember that, you know, they're not alone and that their chosen family is out there that is beautiful, and just keep rocking at everything that you're doing. And we're definitely fans and happy to be friends.
Oh,
and we'll keep you updated with everything. Everyone check out Emeline O'Hara. Thank you so much for doing this interview with us, and definitely let us know if you need anything.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Narelle. It was wonderful meeting you guys.
You're welcome, Emeline. It was nice meeting you too. Much love from the band Famous.
So much love to you too. Thank you. Yes, you too. Thank you.
We feel it. We feel it. Love
Thank
received
you.
and
Wonderful.
sent. Much love.
Love
All right,
it.
we'll be in
Have
touch,
a wonderful
love.
day. Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.